Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, brought to you by Join Cycling for the TT World Championships recap in Kigali, Rwanda. We had lots of cool videos coming out throughout the week of the riders preparing. The course looked, because it's always, when you have the GPX files, you're looking at the course, and yeah, we're not talking about the difference in cricket wickets between the Wacker and Chennai, but they can play differently, even though a 1K 6% climb is not the same everywhere. The road could be different, the surface can be different, the humidity is different, the altitude is different, the whole environment, and that is what I heard a lot during the week from the interviews, Benji. Harder than they expected.
I think so as well. That's also the rumors that I heard from riders individually, and also riders after the women's race were telling me, okay, that part was harder than I expected, stuff like that. And apparently some riders also didn't have the ideal run-in towards the actual time trial, because I heard from Broe Chapman that her bike only arrived yesterday. So she couldn't do any like pre-runs of the parkour before yesterday, etc. So less ideal, I would say, than a couple other riders. But in general, I agree with you. And also, like, when you look at the road, I'm like, okay, wide roads like Wollongong, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the rolling resistance of the roads in Rwanda there are exactly the same as the rolling resistance of the roads in Wollongong, Australia. But how influential is that? If you climb a 6% climb, how impactful can that be that the road surface is worse?
Yeah, I mean, if it's literally cobbles, the last climbs on this course are cobbles, and it can effectively be the speed of an 8%, 9% climb, depending on how bad the cobbles are, and you're hitting them at the end of a 50-minute time trial. They don't do 50-minute time trials. These riders do not do a 50-minute TT in position throughout the year. This is the only event where they do that, because, well, this year they have not been. I'm talking for Pogačar. I don't know if someone's done some national championships nonsense that was long. Normally they're about half an hour, but for this, I mean, and that's why I got to be self-congratulatory, but that's why I was so bullish on the Aero Missile, Remco, because he is a TT specialist purist. Yes, he is a fantastic one-day rider, fantastic GC rider, but he is a TT specialist, and Pogačar is winning classics. Pogačar is winning the Tour de France. He's preparing for a mountain TT on his road bike on the Tour de France. He's not at home on a 1-hour TT bike effort.
And on top of that, there's multiple other factors, I would say. We discussed in our preview the difference between a rider that, like Pogačar, that can do well in a time trial 2 weeks into a Grand Tour, even towards the end of week 1 in a Grand Tour, stuff like that, because an individual one-day race time trial is different than a stage race with a time trial in it, because recovery, day-to-day recovery, impacts the riders towards that time trial. Then did a rider have to go all out on the day before, stuff like that? But a rider like Pogačar is known to be pretty good when it comes to his recovery in a Grand Tour. I think that's fair to say. But I think it's also in general, I don't know if you agree with this, Patrick, but when I heard about the time trial route and the road race route, before I had even looked at the parkour, a lot of people were saying, oh, it's a climbing time trial. It's a pure climber parkour for the actual road race as well. And when I opened the parkour of both, I looked at the time trial and I said to myself, okay, these gradients are gradients where you are in your skis as a time trialist. The descent as well is what you mentioned a lot in the preview as a factor, and we'll talk about that in the women's race recap as well. But even in the road race, I'm going ahead a little bit, but does it not feel like people see 6,000 altitude meters and think, okay, this is for climbers, while Greg van Avermaet won the Olympics in Rio on a 5,000 altitude meter parkour?
Yeah, it depends how the climbing meters are accumulated. I mean, Jebel Hafit, I think, has 650 meters of climbing in 180 Ks, but a climber can only win it. So it depends how it's accumulated. On this course, it's 41 kilometers for the men, and there's four climbing sections. We have a flat-ish 7 Ks, then they do the Côte de Nyanza, 2.4 Ks, 6%, intermediate time check on top, descent, Uphill again, they turn around, do a U-turn. They do the reverse side of that, Côte de Nyanza, 6.6Ks, 3.5%. Long. I think I don't have all the stats in front of me. I think this might be the fastest 5 minutes of a TT World Championships in a long, long time. From T2 to T3, they average 70 for 6.5 minutes. So that is a very fast section. I remember listening to an interview with maybe Lebu, and she was saying that the roads are really wide. It's not technical. Basically, they're just bombing down 3-4% there, and then they do the Côte de Péage, the toll road, 2K, 6.6%. That's a proper climb, descent, and then a cobble climb, the Côte de Kimihurura, which is 1.3K, 6%. And yeah, as it's cobbled, as it's a bit irregular, we have, a 9% cobble section. That's hard at the end of that's in the last 5 minutes of a 50-minute TT. Short descent and then another kick to the line in Kigali. It's all the average altitude of the TTs over 1,500 meters. Really hard, and that false flat or shallow descending section, that benefits Remco over everybody, because you can say, oh, well, that's really good for the powerhouses, a Florian Vermeersch, a Luke Plapp. Yeah, but they got to also do the climbs. And so that's why peak Roglic would have cooked on this course, like in Tokyo. And that's why, I mean, what did you think when you saw the images of Remco doing the recons as a Belgian, Benji? He looked completely different to the Tour de France.
As a Belgian, yeah. I was literally looking up to the sky and I was thinking, okay, the national anthem was shining in my ears as I looked at the image of Remco Evenepoel, because he looked more muscly than at the Tour de France. And I think, well, it's not a belief, it's objectively true that on a time trial where there's more rolling climbs, you would say that being super light can be a disadvantage in places, especially in those fast ascents that you were speaking about as well, but also in the not super slow climbs. If you're climbing at 35 kph, etc., then it's still a relatively fast climb. So there's certain moments in this parkour where you're like, okay, this is 100% that Remco Evenepoel terrain where he can take a gap on others. And I'll go ahead a little bit. That's even more shown in the actual women's race. We'll get to that later, but the more I looked at this parkour, the more I felt like Remco Evenepoel would be taking this home. But you and I had a slight difference in our assessment, where you went out in the preview and you said Remco Evenepoel is going to win this easy, and I had my opinion of, okay, normally Remco wins this, but I'm not sure. I had less certainty because I expected it to be closer than you did.
I mean, Remco should be offended. The odds were offensive. It was he was not even the favorite. He wasn't even the favorite for this TT. And when I saw that Remco Le Bodybuilder was back, when I saw it was Le Bodybuilder turning up, I was like, no one's stopping him, because he's prepared specifically for this event. No one with his talent, like Poggy, has so many other things he's trying to win. I mean, yes, he said, I spent more time on my TT bike. Remco abandoned the Tour, and from that day abandoning the Tour de France, he has prepared for this event. And that's just such an advantage. Plus, he's just also better as a time trial rider. I mean, did you know offensive linemen in the NFL, I think they try to
NFL's
increase
hockey, right?
No, so in NFL football, American football, they try to increase their bicep size so that it's a shorter distance when they're pushing. I think Remco tries to increase his bicep size to cut off the gap between his hands, head, and biceps. And it's actually more aerodynamic for his biceps and arms to be bigger.
But then we have riders like Egan Bernal that take it to the next level, where they get a nose job to try and increase their aerodynamics. Are we going to see some triangular Phineas and Ferb head in the sport of cycling in 5 years because Remco Evenepoel wants to be even more aero?
Yeah, you can get aero fairings by like breaking your shoulders or something.
Or taking out ribs.
I'm being 100% serious. I think Remco having bigger biceps makes him more aero. I 100% believe it. Because the taller, skinny riders struggle in TTs because there's all that space.
The question then is, every now and then we see riders put like something on their chest, etc. What, can riders get like an abnormal growth on their chest to try and increase their fairing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, can you have a bigger fairing by having a bigger chest or like a big belly? Maybe, yeah, get a big belly, a beer gut, and then you have a fairing. But
Carlos
anyway,
Betancourt would be a great time trialist.
we should
No
cut to the
offense.
chase. You can tell what's probably happened. Remco Evenepoel wins his third World Championships time trial in Kigali, and it wasn't even close. He puts a minute 14 into Jay Vine, 2:36 into Ilan van Wilder, who keeps Tadej Pogacar off the podium by a second and a half. Remco averaged nearly 49 kph over over 1 kph quicker than Jay Vine, who did a fantastic TT. Del Toro fifth on 240, so Del Toro was only 4 seconds off the medals himself. 2 Belgians on the podium. And which is
sorry.
Well, yeah,
Delayed.
Because I think a Belgian journalist wasn't allowed to visit, so there's a bit of tension there. So that is kind of curious what will happen. Leknesson 6 on 257, Plapp 303, Armorel 306, Aronsman 339, Stefan Kung 348. That was the top 10. And if you want to be like Remco, and let's be honest, training can feel intimidating. Maybe your week is too unpredictable. Maybe you think you're not serious enough. Join Cycling can come in and help you there. It's training built for real cyclists with real lives. You tell Join Cycling how much time you have, and it builds the perfect plan around your schedule. If you miss a ride, it adapts. And the best part is, better fitness makes every ride more fun. Whether that's chasing friends on the weekend, commuting, or just cruising around, exploring on your bike. If you're traveling, you're working, got kids, Join Cycling can keep you on the right track. So if you've ever felt like training apps weren't made for you, try out Join Cycling. See if it works for you. Sign up through the link down below in our show notes. The annual plan's the best value you can get for year-round support, and it lets them know that we sent you. Remco by a minute, Benji? Catches Pog, though. Catches Pogacar. That's crazy.
I expected Jay Vine to podium this race, to be clear. So, like, you as well. You also mentioned him as, like, a top 3 rider in this race. A lot of people started mentioning Isaac Del Toro for this time trial. I did not see that. There's a world in which I can see Isaac Del Toro compete in some shape or form at the road race. But I also think that people might be looking at the one-day races he's won recently and maybe... I won't say overhyping him because he's a really talented rider, but slight overration compared to what his actual reality level is. But Van Wilder, a fantastic time trial. But you asked me about the big guns here. You asked me about the big guns. Remco Evenepoel taking 2 minutes 37 across this time trial. And it's not like we saw, like, if I look at the individual splits of all these riders here involved, then I can't really say, okay, this rider went slow in that part, this rider went slow in that part, especially Remco. He just rode faster than everyone on every single part of the parkour. And the one moment where I feel like he maybe didn't go as fast as some other people, or, well, he probably still went faster, but he might not have the godlike time in between T2 and T3, the point you mentioned there. Do you think there's a world in which Remco Evenepoel or his team car said to him halfway the parkour on this descent between T2 and T3, don't take full risks?
Nah, you shouldn't say that to someone. I mean, you don't know what Pogacar's pacing plan is. You don't know that he might be holding something.
Race was over halfway, my friend.
I know, but Vine beat Remco in the final intermediate. Check.
Fair.
I know the race was over, but I don't think you just if he's in the zone, you keep him in the zone. Also, what's the difference? It's not that technical. What's the difference between 66 and 70 kph? If you crash, it's bad either way. And yeah, like Remco was the fastest there. So he averaged 70 for 6.5 minutes. Averaged 70 on the TT bike, and that's where he took a lot of time. I mean, compared to Pog, he's put 17 seconds into him there, maybe for free. And but really, it was like T1. I mean, he just smoked Pog to T1, like 45 seconds. Jay Vine was fourth there, 46 seconds. Jay, as I said, did maybe a negative split. He was 10 seconds quicker than Remco from T3 to the finish. But yeah, that's the only intermediate I can see where he wasn't the fastest. Like, In the faster section of T1 to T2, the up and down section, which was maybe a descent and a climb, he was half a minute quicker than Vine, who was second. And I'm trying to see some outliers. Plapp maybe, Plapp had a different pacing strategy than everyone else. Or maybe Vine similar. Platt was 15th to T1, 4th from T3 to the finish on the slower section. And like Stefan Kung, you can see that Kung was second on the fast descent section, but he just lost way too much time on the climbs compared to the small boys.
But it's also like, we can look at the times, but also looking at the difference, Evenepoel was 2 kph faster up until T3 to everyone. And it's from T3 to the finish, like you say, where Vine is then 10 seconds faster and brings that average difference between the two down to, I think, just over 1 kph across the parkour. But in general, Jay Vine rode a really fast final as well, by the way. Like, that T3 to finish was fast. And it's not just about pacing plan either. It's about having something left at that point. And I know that's related to pacing plan, but that's also because Remco Evenepoel is a rider that is inherently faster due to CDA, power output, etc. on the false flat downhill segments than a Pogacar. To me, that also shouts that he can then also regulate himself a little bit to have more left on the climb that follows after that. Does that make sense? Because I think Reusser spoke about it in the women's time trial, that her being able to glide downwards easier than a lighter rider, that as a consequence of that, she has more left for the climb that follows after. And I think that applies exactly here as well, in a lighter form though.
Yeah, for Vine, if he's just smashing that descent and then he can recover and then... But yeah, Vine, really, really good. Van Wilder, I think, that's a crazy performance. Van Wilder podiuming, that's... Remco winning is not like a crazy result. The margin is maybe, but even like
margin to Vine is expected.
Yeah, like 114 to Vine. That's not crazy. It's more Pog had a bad day. Pog said he was sick, so he couldn't finish his TT training before Canada. Also, Pog's just never been dominant in the World Champs TT. It's just something he's never excelled at each year. And in a humid country internationally, travel, it would probably made it even less likely that he was going to be good.
Pog did not have a altitude camp, right? Before the Canadian Classics, or am I inventing that?
I'm not sure, but yeah, probably not. Probably not. He probably finished the tour, had a couple of weeks off, and then started training again.
I assume Remco did.
Yeah, probably.
We're going on assumptions here.
Remco would have. He had loads of time.
Yeah.
And he'd want to have been acclimatized to altitude. Yeah. Remco went to Livigno, according to Luke. So, yeah, Remco definitely did. Pog, maybe not. And is Remco the best time trial rider ever?
We've had this discussion before. My answer was yes. Your answer was yes. So I know a lot of people will be like, what are you saying? Don't you remember Tony Martin and Fabian Cancellara and so forth? There's a big differential here, that it's a very different type of rider, and Remco Evenepoel can win time trials on almost every terrain. Unless it's like actual climbing time trial, that's where Pogacar will undoubtedly beat him. But on any other terrain, Evenepoel wins, and he's won every time trial that matters in the sport. He's won a Vuelta time trial, if I recall, Tour de France, Giro time trial, World Champions ITT, Belgian ITT, European ITT, and the Olympics ITT. So what's left? World hour record, but I don't give a fuck about that.
I think on pure palmarès, Cancellara is still ahead. That's inarguable. Cancellara has 4 World Championships time trial. You can talk about a rainy night in Stoke. Remco's done it in...
What is this rainy night in Stoke focus you have in the last 2 podcasts? Where did you hear that sentence and you keep repeating it?
You gotta... I can't explain it right now. We got a time limit here, but it's not a new thing. It's not a new thing. It's like Peter Crouch would also always say that like Messi in Barcelona would have had a hard time beating Stoke, playing them in Stoke.
Is that the attacker dude that played for Tottenham at some point?
Not sure if he played for Tottenham. That's Harry Kane. Yeah, Peter Crouch is a
before
really
that.
tall one. I think he precedes your time in the UK.
That is just rude. He did play for Tottenham. Get fucked, mate.
Did he?
Yeah, of course. In
How do you know
2009,
that?
the peak of football. I was a football player back in the day. Massive AC Milan fan. Filippo Inzaghi. I love you, my friend. Andrei Shevchenko. Heaven. Those were the cyclists. No, those were the footballers. I'm sorry. All these modern day scrubs that everybody keeps watching on their TV. I'm sorry. Football ended when I stopped watching.
Cancellara won in Australia in the Geelong World Champs TT, but Remco's gone to Rwanda. He's done it there. And so that's the equivalent. Like, can you win a World Champs on a hot, humid day in Kigali at 1,500 meters? And Remco did. We'll see in the road race. But yeah, Cancellara's also got 2 Olympic Games individual time trial gold medals. So I think maybe, yeah, I would still take peak Remco over peak Cancellara TT if you have a variety of courses, because they make hard courses now, and Remco can win the flat ones. He can beat Ganner on the flat ones. He can beat Pog on the climbing ones. He's unstoppable.
Did Cancellara win the... Yeah, he did win the Olympic ITT. I wasn't sure of it. He won it twice actually.
Right? Yeah.
It was the road race that he was desperate to win, I think, at the end of his career. If I recall.
He won in Rio, right?
Yeah, correct. And 2008 as well, but I can't remember where that was.
How hard was that Rio course?
That was quite rolly, if I recall correctly. But the road race was 5,000 altitude meters, that's for sure. Where Sergio Henao decided to stab through the heart of the Vincenzo Nibali fans by...
Well, that Rio course, an hour 12, 55 Ks, 857 meters climbing. That's proper TT stuff. None of this 40k work nonsense. I mean, in previous TT World Champs they had 30k. I mean, why bother even getting the TT bike out? It's a World Championships. It should be an hour. Remco. What can you say? Congrats to him. Belgium 2 medals. That's already a successful games. I would say Michael Leonard, good performance from him.
Beating Australia again, Belgium. What can I say? Better country.
We'll take silver. That's pretty good.
Okay, but the big question that we got to hammer is a question that a lot of people probably want us to answer is, what does this time trial, Remco being so dominant, Pogacar not looking that great in this time trial, what does that mean for the road race? Because we can talk about a massive difference today. If you look at it's not a good comparison. But if you look at the Dauphiné, Remco wins the time trial, Pogacar drops him on the climbs. Like, how do we see that translate, or is that something we're gonna answer in the preview podcast?
I mean, on a rolling hilly course, Remco was already as good as Pog. Like at Amstel. So, well, I mean, Pog is a better climber on a road bike.
I think Amstel requires the context of the race as well. Pogacar going early, in doing so fucking himself over. I think that's context that matters here.
Yeah, but Remco also had to chase.
But I do agree that there's many pathways to victory for Remco Evenepoel in a road race like this as well.
Yeah, I think Remco has a real shot to win. I agree. It makes his shape is obviously excellent. I think he should race it aggressive. And what Remco needs is, I guess, not to what happened last year in Zurich, where basically he and Van der Poel thought Pog going early was a mistake and they chilled out, and then Maxim Van Hills and Tim Wellens turned into me and you as domestiques. That was suddenly the level that he had in front of him, chasing for 10 minutes. And
we'd been more helpful with our joint cycling training plan.
We would have been more helpful than Tim. At least, well, I mean, did Pog? Why none of the UAE riders allowed at the fucking Worlds?
I have my opinion on that.
I said, Brett. I think in the preview I was like, Brandon McNulty will medal. They didn't. He's not even here. He's doing Luxembourg.
But we got to talk about this. So Narvaez is not doing Worlds, etc. That kind of stuff.
McNulty.
If we look at that, we ask ourselves the question at Alpecin all the time, the Roodhof network. How is UAE's connection to the Roodhof network? And as a consequence, is there maybe a separate network, that is the Pogacar network, that causes these riders to not show up despite the parkour? But to be honest, if I'm Remco, I don't want Wellens in my team next week.
I wouldn't exactly. If I wouldn't want Wellens. I'd rather have someone else.
I'd rather have Jasper Philipsen, and he can't even climb.
Fucking Rutger Wouters, get him in.
Rutger Wouters.
He's the goat. So
Where
get
did you
him
plug
in.
that one from?
He wins the most races every year, and Narvaez's shape not good. He's not hiding that. I mean, he's in Luxembourg in a perfect race. He's not dominating. McNulty maybe just didn't want to go do the travel. Still surprising. With his Montreal shape, he wouldn't want to do Worlds.
But the shape you mentioned when it comes to Narvaez, I also think that's a bit... You can't really look at that and see it as a cause necessarily, because on the other hand, if he had prepared for the World Championships, he might have been informed to begin with, you know? Because they don't just decide last week to show up to the World Championships, eh? He would have prepared better and he would have been informed. And
you have the vaccines and you got to adapt to, it's a lot of travel. I get it. Still.
But I also am of the opinion that you can't look at today and say Pogacar is not looking good for the road race either.
No, I mean, if Pogacar's still the favorite for the road race. He's still the favorite for the road race, but he's beatable. He is beatable.
How does Remco, a bodybuilder, impact Remco's results for the road race?
Yeah, that's my concern. Because the biceps don't help as much on when Pog goes on the steep climb. So,
anyway, we're going too much into
we shouldn't preview
our road
race
race preview.
Okay.
Let's talk about the women's race, shall we?
Yes. So the course we had in the Women's World Championships was a bit shorter, 31 Ks, a bit less climbing, still 500 meters of climbing, hard course, and we have same cobbled finish, and we still have 3 intermediate time checks. Marlon Reusser, Demi Vollering, and I think Van der Breggen were the 3...
Or
the top 3 in the market, and they were pretty close, but I think Reusser was the favorite. Maybe Dijkert was up there too in the market?
Yeah, I think she was up there in the market, but my favorite for this race going into it was Reusser. You mentioned Vollering as a rider with a chance as well, and I saw the possibility there, but I also look at this parkour because it's not exactly the same parkour, but it's still a parkour where those same mechanics of the men's race also count. We're also looking at a parkour and the climb. Vollering is on paper faster than Reusser, but on the majority of the flat sections and false flat segments, Reusser has a bigger engine. So you've got this balance between the two, and I reckon I'll just do the same that we usually do, which is start off with the result and then talk backwards. And the winner of this World Championships ITT with the women is Marlon Reusser. She wins ahead of Anna van der Breggen, and she wins actually with a solid gap of roughly 52 seconds. Sorry, I had to do math there for a second. That hurt a lot in my brain. And then Vollering is 13 seconds behind Van der Breggen, so just over a minute behind Marlon Reusser, and Brodie Chapman just outside of the podium. So that's a bit sad. I would have liked to have seen Brodie Chapman take home the podium. Katrien Alderud with a great time trial, in my opinion, 5th. Niedermayer 6th, Labou in 7th, Henderson, Dijkert only 9th, Benito takes 10th. So really disappointing time trial by Dijkert. And if I look at the time splits here, it started off not that great for Dijkert, and it kept going the entire time trial. And the only out there thing on this time split table, Patrick, is that you can see, you can't really see it on the time split table either, but in the race itself, we could see that Marlon Reusser takes time on the first flat section. On the climb, Vollering starts taking time back. 20 seconds down to 14 seconds down to 13 seconds down. And at the top of the first climb, at the first intermediate, the gap is very little between the two riders. Like, it's less than a second, I'm pretty sure. And that's because you've got the balance between the flat and the climbing, which to me shows that if there's more climbing in this time trial, Vollering is very competitive here. But that's not the case because of those false flat downhills, you know?
Well, actually, and that's to your point you made in regards to the men's race. Okay, Reusser beats Vollering in the last intermediate. But is that because she's been able to save more energy, on the faster sections than Vollering, and then can just power it out for the last 5 minutes, like Jay Vine did, like Luke Plapp did. So, yeah, it's a tricky
Vollering looked
TT.
cooked on the final climb.
Yeah, and whereas, yeah, on that, it looks like, oh, they're so close. There's less than a second between them to T1. But if Royce is on cruise control, and if Royce can just save more, then it's a huge advantage. There's a much tighter cluster between the riders from T2 to the fast section from T2 to T3. Dygert was the fastest there at 7:03. The problem is she's not taking back that much time. She's only 11 seconds quicker than Royce, who's the third fastest in that section. And Royce, she's only, even though Vollering's 11th from T2 to T3, it's a difference of 7.5 seconds. Whereas from T3 to the finish, Royce just smokes everybody. She puts Chapman on 24, 25 seconds. She puts Vollering on a full 30 seconds. She puts 30. So basically, over half of the gap from Royce to Vandenbrecht at the finish, she took in the last 8 minutes on the final climb. So she must have paced it perfectly. Royce
Labou as well.
Yeah, Labou good there too.
Third on the last segment to the finish as well. So I had something left for that final climb, and I do agree that there's something in there when it comes to be honest, Royster said it herself in the post-race interview that because of the fact that on the false flat downhill sections she has it easier to put the power out than a Vollering, that on a climb afterwards she feels like she has a little bit more left to then push all out and focus on the climbs. And I think that didn't pay off on the first climb yet. But then on the second and the third climb on the Stam trial, it started paying off, and definitely on the one to the finish line. So that is clear. But Marlon Royster winning this is the first time she becomes world champion. She's been in the conversation so many times against Alan van Dijk back in the day. And throughout this year, she's risen to a level in terms of climbing, especially, where she's arguably at her best level ever in terms of climbing. And she's still got the time trial level, as we can see today, that she had beforehand. But of course, the Tour de France Femme was the downside, I would say, of her season, where she ended up starting sick and DNF during the first stage. That clearly was not her level, and we see that again as she returns victorious at the Stam trial. So crazy good victory by Royster. She was the favorite. She brings it home. And where do we is the level that we saw in Royster this year the max level we're ever going to see in Royster? Because I don't necessarily feel like I'm going to see her get better from this point now.
She obviously took a big step with her climbing this year. I mean, maybe she keeps improving, but how much leaner can you get? Maybe she can add more power. She was a late starter, of course, but she's 34. Yep. But yeah, this is, if she wins her first ever World Championships time trial, which is, she had a few close calls beforehand. I think in Australia, well, there was the Van Dijk dominant era back then. Where'd she come in? Yeah, she was second in Leuven, only 10 seconds behind Van Dijk. In 23, she DNF'd the TT in Stirling. I can't remember what happened in 23. She have a mechanical?
No, it was not a mechanical. I think it was just don't know how to best describe it, but she wasn't ready for it.
Suffering from a concussion or something?
No, she just DNF'd the race. She
And then Zurich last year was a huge target for her, and she wasn't able to start in Zurich, so that must have been a huge disappointment. So now she does win the TT World Championships for the first time. Vandenbreggen, very, very good. I didn't expect her to come second. She's won this before in Imola, which was a hard course. No, not that hard a course. Pretty rolling for the women. And she beat Royce by 15 seconds there. So, wow, Royce has been very close before. I think both these TTs bring back something, I think, for race organizers to think about, which is the Women's Tour de France has to have a TT.
Yes.
It has to. If you're going to
a
have a Madeleine...
45-kilometer one.
Well, if you're going to have Madeleine or Ventoux, then you should have a flat TT, right?
A 45-kilometer one?
Maybe not 45 Ks, but like 25, 30. Well, I mean, yeah, why not 40 Ks?
I do wonder how that will, like, if we look at the Tour de France from this year and we add in our mind a 25-kilometer time trial to it, hypothetically, with a bit of rolly terrain but relatively flat, it being the time trial, I would expect Vollering to, like, I haven't really seen much of Pauline Ferrand-Prévot time trialing, but I cannot imagine her being faster in that time trial in my head than Vollering. So that would give Vollering a slight advantage. Reusser would be competitive, even though she had DNF this year, but it would severely hit riders like Sarah Gigante, who already struggle with the descents, but now the time trial on top of that, because Gigante is not a super fast time trialist either. Eh?
I think you're right. I think it has to be long, because a 20K one's not making up the difference.
75 kilometers.
Yeah, maybe not that long, but Trofeo Baracchi. So
you can select. Trofeo Baracchi was 2 riders, right?
Yeah,
a 2-rider time trial.
So Demi and Lebeau. Van der Breggen and Kopecky.
Would you sign someone else, knowing that there would be a Trofeo Baracchi next year?
You'd sign a T like Lieke, yeah.
Alan van Dijk out of retirement.
Exactly, she'd become very important for the Tour de France bid, and the same goes for the men's. I think they got to add a long TT, like or more TTKs.
I think so too, like a really long one.
Yeah,
and a really long team time trial. Which here my proposal: a 50-kilometer team time trial with in the middle of it a 10-kilometer 8% climb. Nah, then the GC leader will just go solo. Yeah, it needs to be much longer for the balance to be so perfect that they have to choose between launching the leader or keeping the team together. How much flat section would there need to be after Alpe d'Huez in a team time trial for that team to stick together? UAE Team Emirates.
Yeah, but you have to finish with 4.
Yeah, but hypothetically, if Paris-Nice rules count.
Yeah, well, I don't know. To be honest, I think you just launch him. I mean, UAE probably that would suit them even more because they have so many good climbers around, like Vine size. Chapman, really, really good result. I mean, shame she couldn't be on the podium. 16 seconds off. Alerud, excellent, 124. Benito, top 10. Didn't expect that. The AG Insurance Sudal Spaniard, and anything else from?
Not really. Like, does this teach us something for the actual road race? I just expect a good Vollering in that race. I expect a good Anna van der Breggen in that race. Reusser being on level.
The Dutch women will be good. I mean, the gaps here are not as big as the men's. I mean, it's 137 from 1st to 8th. From podium to 8th is 33 seconds. It's tighter gaps than the men's, so I expect a competitive race, but the Dutch women to be good. Obviously, I mean, they should be good.
Really? In the sport of women's cycling?
Yeah. Doesn't mean they'll win, but Lebeau is strong, so that's a good foil for Ferrand-Prévot. So yeah, 2 of the favourites to the road race, Ferrand-Prévot and Vos, obviously didn't compete in the TT. Anything else?
That's it.
It all went off without a hitch, though. There was no drama. It all went off without a hitch.
Yeah, but I wasn't necessarily expecting that, to be honest. I will be honest. I'm used to seeing the Tour de Rwanda footage and seeing the Mur de Kigali with so many supporters by the side of the road. I did not see that in this time trial, and I was hoping to, but I hope I see that at the road race, because that's always epic, the atmosphere at the Tour de Rwanda on the Mur de Kigali.
Yeah, I mean, that race is always really, really cool. Young guys have a chance. Total Energies normally go. And
Quick Steps and their dev team.
Yep. It was a good World Championships TT today. 2 deserved winners and 2 of the best time trial riders in the world got it done. Reusser and Remco Evenepoel. So I hope you enjoyed the recap. We'll see you with the road race preview early next week. Until then, ciao, ciao.